Hello and welcome to today's Dav Chat. I have a question for any audience members who turn up. Oh, and also a warning, if you are watching via Twitter, I can't see comments you make, but I can see comments on Twitch or YouTube. And hopefully that's a problem that we'll resolve at some point. But for now, just hold your fire if you're on Twitter, and you can always send me a comment on my account. But my question for the audience was, what surprised you as an adult? Because for me, I was talking to my husband and he said the thing that surprised him is people's capacity to sell out the human race for relatively small sums and small additions to their life. So there's people working in the corporate world who will cheerfully sell out the entirety of the human race, will take steps that will disadvantage other humans, and do it for relatively little value to themselves and their families. So that's something for humans to learn about themselves and others, is that whilst we have great capacity for good, there's a lot of capacity to do harm with relatively little motivation for unprincipled people. And yeah, speaking of unprincipled people, Trump appointed Florida federal judge, Judge Aileen Cannon, has refused to even read a amicus brief, a Friends of the Court brief from former Republicans who've served in Republican administrations, asking her to reconsider her decision in allowing for a special master to view the documents that Trump stole from the US government when he removed them from the White House and took them to the place he lives. I'm not going to say the place he owns, because apparently Trump may not be the owner of the Mar-a-Lago property. So let's make sure I don't use possessive pronouns. What I have up on the screen today, I'll just show you briefly, is some climate change statistics, just noting that California has broken some heat records in September for the coastal region, and temperatures are going to reach 110 degrees in some Bay Area cities. So that's unfortunate. San Francisco, possible record temps at 117 degrees. Now, I know that's hot because that's Fahrenheit, and I'm from Australia where 40 degrees Celsius is really high. And I looked that up. That's the equivalent of 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So 117 degrees is going to be really unpleasant. A lot of people in American jails are going to be suffering because they're very denigrated and dismissed portions of the American society, and that means people can profit at their expense. People can save money by not putting on air conditioning because they relish the suffering of people who are incarcerated. So that's not cool. And hopefully, as American society heals, if more people vote for Democrats in the midterm elections and help the Democrats expand control over the Senate so they can more easily pass legislation and hold on to their House majority, then we could begin to have a country that no longer has to denigrate other demographics, be it an incarcerated population or a migrant population, in order to feel better about ourselves. Because a lot of people do that as a strategy to ward off anxiety, say, well, at least I'm not those people, or I'm a righteous person because I'm better than those people. People perform mental, psychological gymnastics to be able to hold themselves in good regard, but also to dampen down any rising feelings of anxiety they might have about their place in the world, their accomplishments, or even our fate collectively. So, for example, some people are no doubt sublimating their climate change anxieties into denigrating people who aren't Christian or who have been jailed for serious or minor reasons. And that's no way to live as a society. We should find productive ways to deal with our anxiety and not rejoice in taking it out on other people, or not rejoice in the suffering of other people. I feel a little bit of rejoicing. It's not my best impetus. It's not my best impulse, I should say. But sometimes when January the 6th participants receive significant jail sentences for their criminal activity in attacking police officers, I have felt a measure of satisfaction. It's not a very noble impulse, but hopefully what I'm feeling is a sublimated hope that those people and that others will be deterred from future acts of violence. So Paul's here and says, hello, Paul. Paul wrote, it's quite clear that anyone who Trump appointed clearly wants to be part of the ongoing coup. Oh, coup. I should say coup. It's a silent P. Hello to you, Paul. And look, sometimes Trump appointees hold their fire when they sense that he's already going down. For example, the Supreme Court were asked to rule on whether or not the election was stolen from Trump. Big deceitful claims from Donald Trump that didn't have any evidentiary backing. And the Supreme Court, as a massive 6 conservatives and 4 non-conservatives, could evidently see the writing on the wall that there was not adequate amounts of support for that coup and for overturning the results of the election, when there was no evidence that Hugo Chavez from South America had magically interfered in the election, or that there was this widespread secret fraud that Trump claimed. That was baseless and false. So they declined to even hear Trump's case in that instance. And then they held their fire and saved it for when their other purpose in life came up, to restrict women's health, women's access to health care, and to overturn abortion. There's a lot of women who need medications that have since become more difficult to obtain because the law has sufficiently been clouded with regards to women's health that pharmacists can refuse to fulfill a woman's prescription from a doctor because the substances, whilst necessary to treat one medical condition, could also potentially be an abortifacient, could result in the death of a fetus if that woman is pregnant. But you have 55-year-old women, other women who aren't pregnant, being refused the medication that they need to reduce suffering or to prevent death and illness progression, with regards to lupus, arthritis, other conditions that involve, or the treatment for which involves medication that could cause a miscarriage. Christopher's here and says, hi, Dav. Hello, Christopher. Eric's here. Hello, Eric from South Florida. He says, hope you and your family are all well and that he's missed me. Bless your heart. Thanks for tuning in. We'll go to some other things. What have I got? Darling, would you like to get the children?
It'll be rainy. I think we both should get them. So
it'll be rainy. I think you should get them. Yeah, I think that would be good. And then I'll put dinner on while you're out. All right. Bless your heart in a good way. All right. So, cycling back to Judge Elaine Cannon and the special treatment that he's getting as a former president who's been rendered effectively above the law in this instance. She's letting him claim executive privilege even when he is not occupying the office of the presidency. And a lawyer, an analyst for the editor of Just Security, she's not even putting on her biography anymore that she's appeared on CNN. Such is the mud reputation of CNN at the moment, I think. Asher Rangappa is noting that neither Trump nor his lawyers are contesting that he illegally possessed government records, including classified records, because he admits he took them. He's complained about a variety of different things, that the FBI strew the records on the floor in order to take a photograph of the contents of a box. He's like, they're trying to suggest I'm untidy. No, but you're admitting you possess those records. According to the Presidential Records Act, you're not allowed to take any records with you when you leave office. Records that are of consequence can go to the National Archives and be part of your library, but none of your records can be acquired as a souvenir or a potential yard sale item for you and whatever foreign adversarial governments you invite to your own private yard sale at Mar-a-Lago. For America's top secrets, classified documents, potentially including troop movements and secret identities of CIA assets, people who are part of the intelligence operations of America around the world that help keep the American government apprised of what's happening and what the intentions are of foreign governments, whether they be firmly adversarial, violent in a distant way, working on nuclear weapon buildup, etc. There's a lot of reasons why America has cultivated assets, people who add to the intelligence supply of the American government, people who give clues to intelligence agencies about what's happening and what the intentions and practices are of foreign governments, whether that be the government of Russia, China, Iran, or even Saudi Arabia, which is a government linked to the organization behind the events of 9/11, and other nations. America, in order to maximize its own safety and security, has to have a clue, and CIA assets are a part of that. The package deal of America spending billions of dollars to secure its interests and to secure the safety of its people by having a clue about what's going on around and in the rest of the world. So yes, Trump stole documents from the government. None of them should have been in his possession. He's tried to play whataboutism as a defense by saying Obama took 300 million documents, whatever crazy figure it was that Trump put in his accusation against Obama. Obama, of course, took no documents home with him. However, documents were given to his official library through NARA, through the... Let's find out the exact words that NARA stands for as an acronym. National Archive and Records Administration. NARA, the National Archive and Records Administration. Thank you, Google. All right. So we don't have any more comments at this point in time. That's fine. We're going to move on with some other things. How's the volume, folks? Oh, somebody made a good point that it's like we're supposed to think that the stigma of a former president of the United States being caught committing crimes is worse than the stigma of a former president actually committing the crime. So it's like they're saying, don't look at what he's done. Don't look too hard. The appointment of a special master is a step that just creates dubiousness. It muddies the water by acting as if there's legitimacy to Trump's claims. And there really isn't. It's very obvious that if it's illegal to take documents home with you, then Trump having those documents is evidence of a crime. And muddying the waters by saying, oh, well, perhaps he has executive privilege. He's no longer in office and these documents aren't his. He should have no documents. but maybe he does. Just is an effort to give legitimacy, an effort to minimize the audacity, the extraordinary, unprecedented circumstance of Trump having 104 classified documents, as well as 43 empty folders bearing the banner classified. Which of America's top secrets or classified pieces of information has Donald Trump already allowed to fall into somebody else's hands or outright sold to an enemy? And his superpower as a aspirational fascist is audacity, is manipulating people into a clearly false narrative by making it seem so audacious it's actually just appealing, because it seems to be steamrollering reality. So Donald Trump saying, I've done nothing wrong. What about Obama? He's certainly done things. What about Hillary Clinton, who was found to have no classified emails? So I've been able to look at that situation a bit more closely lately, and there were 3 emails in contention from the 30,000 emails that were reviewed from her server, and 3 of them were not classified, but contained a C in paragraphs further down in the body of the email, and those C's were improperly included. The material was found not to be classified. She had no classified documents sent to her or sent by her from her private server. So she's been extraordinarily maligned by the Republican Party and complicitly by the mainstream media as well, which foregrounded Republican narratives that were false in order to present an impression of balance, in order to pander those who worked the refs to gain the outcome they wanted politically, to undermine people's resolve to vote for Hillary Clinton, even Republicans or Republican-leaning independents who, with good reason, were suspicious of Donald Trump in 2016. Their resolve to vote for Hillary Clinton, or their resolve to refrain from voting for Donald Trump, was undermined by the mainstream media discussing Hillary Clinton's emails through the perspective of Republican lies, through legitimizing and validating Republican-driven falsities about Hillary Clinton and about what was found at every step of the process. And I'm going to include James Comey as part of that complicity in terms of he could have been more circumspect. He could have followed the rules of his organization and refrained from announcing a new investigation into emails that he knew were copies of emails that had already been investigated. What was it? How many days out? 11 days out from the 2016 election. So boo to you, James Comey, and your false claim to be noble and high-minded when you undermined a woman and a Democrat, when you were a conservative, Republican-minded person who either deludes himself as well as deluding other people that he's so fair when he broke the rules of not announcing investigations into candidates for the presidency within 60 days of an election. So James Comey broke that rule, and he did it, he says, out of an abundance of concern that Hillary Clinton would win the election, and that if the investigation into her emails wasn't perceived to be extremely thorough, that would undermine the legitimacy of her presidency, and that would therefore hurt America. So he said he was assuming that she would win, hence he violated the rule around not publicly announcing investigations into a presidential candidate within 60 days of an election. He broke that rule out of an abundance of concern and conviction that Hillary was clearly the better candidate and that Donald Trump would definitely not win the election. So Yes. Oh, he is trending. Why is James Comey trending? I was talking about him. Oh, he's trending because of Hillary Clinton's emails for all the reasons that I was talking about. Comey admitted he was wrong after he claimed I had classified emails. Trump's own State Department, under 2 different secretaries, found I had no classified emails. That's right, 0. By contrast, notes Hillary, Trump has hundreds of documents clearly marked classified, and the investigation is just started. There you go. Trump and his cult were still chanting "lock her up" even last week. 3 emails that were improperly marked as classified, just with a little C, not even a banner heading in the email, but that turned out to not be classified at all. Comey admitted it, whereas Trump has been admitting over and over again to having
Director, thank you for your
having
patience.
taken
Want to clear up some
classified
things,
documents. And once he admits to taking them, he's admitting to stealing them, because the Presidential Records Act precludes a departing president from taking any records with them. It's a post-Nixon development. It's a post-Nixon piece of legislation. Do not take documents from the White House. Do not take documents from your office if you were the President of the United States, but you are no longer President of the United States. And even if you were President of the United States, do you get to remove them from the secure, compartmentalized areas? There's probably a law against that as well. But definitely don't take them to your home. Definitely don't try to exert executive privilege over something when you're no longer in the executive branch of government. And don't incite violence for the purpose of intimidating judges or persuading judges to grant you extraordinary pass over laws that everyone else has to abide by. Now, I haven't checked to see for a while if there's any comments. Let's have a look. Oh, everybody says volume is good. That's excellent. I've got to go and make dinner very shortly, but I will. What else will I do? I was going to play Comey for a minute.
I want to make sure I understand exactly what you testified to on the issue of whether Secretary Clinton sent or received emails that were marked as classified. On Tuesday, you stated, and I quote, "Only a very small number of the emails containing classified information bore markings," and I emphasize, bore markings indicating the presence of classified information, end of quote. Republicans have pounced on this statement as evidence that Secretary Clinton lied. But today, we learned some significant new facts.
We learned.
And I hope the press listens to this.
Oh, but they didn't.
First, you clarified that you were talking about only 3 emails out of 30,000.
3 out of 30,000. And then
your office reviewed. Is that right?
3, yes.
3 out of 30,000. Is that right?
Yes, at least 30,000.
At least 30,000. And you confirmed that these 3 emails were not properly marked as classified at the time based on federal guidelines and manuals. They did not have a classification header. They did not list the original classifier, the agency, office of origin, reason for classification, or date for declassification. Instead, these emails included only a single quote C, parenthesis, in parenthesis, and then end of quotation mark for confidential on one paragraph lower down in the text. Is that right?
Correct.
So they had little C's lower down in the text. 1.
You testified that based on these facts, it would have been a quote reasonable inference for Secretary Clinton to quote immediately, end of quote, conclude that these emails were not in fact classified. So that was also critical new information. But there's one more critical fact that these emails were not, in fact, and that is this, Director, and to the press, these emails were not, in fact, classified.
They were not even
The
classified.
State Department explained to us yesterday, they
Thanks.
reported that these emails are not classified and that including the little c on these emails was a result of a human error.
Human
The
error.
bottom line is that those little c's should not have been on those documents because they were not, in fact, classified.
Well, thank you.
When Representative Watson Coleman asked you a few minutes ago about this, you testified that you had not been informed. And I understand that. I'm not beating up on you, I promise you. But can you tell us why, Director Coleman? Because I want, because Townsend saying that the secretary lied. And so I want to make sure we're clear on this. Can you tell us why, Director Coleman, did you consult, and we're just curious, did you consult with the State Department about these 3 emails out of the more than 30,000? Did this just not come up?
All right. So that's enough of that. But I think it's pretty clear from what Representative Elijah Cummings, when he was alive, bless his spirit, what he disclosed to the committee, that the State Department had clarified that those 3 emails were not classified. Therefore, there was 0 classified emails. And there's been an abundance of investigations about this, and nobody coming in as a Barack Obama appointed judge to say Hillary Clinton's above the law, she's exerting executive privilege. None of that has happened. It's happened for Trump, and we have to just hope that at least the national security part of the investigation can continue. The Trump appointee, Florida Judge Aileen Cannon, has called for a halt to any further criminal investigation with regards to the seized documents, whilst she appoints a special master, and the special master then reviews all of this information, commingled, banal stuff, magazine clippings, newspaper clippings, with the periodic presence of top secret information and less top secret classified information. So they can't continue to investigate whether or not Trump has committed a crime at multiple levels of criminality, because just the fact that he had them, that he had some classified information in a desk drawer in his office, this is all evidence of a crime. You don't need to continue to dig for that. But if you're going to prove espionage, which is another proposed charge for Trump, you need to be more familiar with the documents. He took the nature of how much he violated America's national interests by recklessly possessing these stolen documents. All right, let's get out of here and see if I've got any concluding remarks for today. Yes, sometimes it can feel like we're written in a poorly written novel, but let's not forget, it's not a poorly written novel. It's just the reality of living in a world in which a white wealthy person was pandered to, and his flaws were overlooked by too many people working within an electoral college voting system, which in and of itself is pandering to white wealthy people who formerly owned slaves, whose ancestors owned slaves, and wanted to preserve the institution of slavery within the United States, unchallenged by people from more highly populated urban areas who were not as reliant on significant agricultural profits generated as a result of the immoral practice of enslaved labor. So that's why you have an electoral college. It's not states' rights to balance out big states against little states. It's to balance out the interests of low population little states with high levels of agricultural land and high levels of profiteering off the misery of unpaid and exploited and demeaned enslaved people. That's what the electoral college does. It puts a thumb on the scale for people from low population states like Wyoming with higher levels of agriculture, because initially America's agricultural profits, the high level of profit was because the labor force was unpaid and the labor force was immorally enslaved. So white people, particularly rural white people, because the white vote is split. Not all white people vote for Republicans, just too many. And whenever the margins of that white balance shift, you get Republican victories. You don't get Republican victories at a popular vote level. Republicans have lost 7 out of the last 8 popular votes for president, but the electoral college system allows Republican white voters to game the system because it is a systematic way of increasing the political potence of conservative voting from smaller states with higher proportions of rural areas. And we know that rural people are more likely to be conservative and white Christian nationalists. They're less likely to be immersed in the ethical development that says not only is slavery wrong, but America should work harder to undo its mental errors of disparaging Black Americans. It should make an effort to have affirmative action, because there's a reason why white people dominate intergenerational wealth and dominate certain spheres of business influence and political influence, because Black people were purposely kept down in order to validate the false narrative propounded by slave profiteers, that enslavers were divinely appointed to be the master race and have some kind of inherent superiority, and conversely, that Black people have some kind of inherent inferiority, which is a lie propagated not just to prop up the fortunes of enslavers and people profiteering from connected industries, even if not directly from slavery, but also, all my family's back and I have to go. Yes. So I hope you enjoyed that broadcast, and thank you. And talk to you all again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.